Well, thank you. By the way, my name is Chuck Oster, and I have the privilege of spending some time with you today. We are going to, in our time together, I'm going to do some discussion with you. We're going to look back at past experiences. We're going to enjoy the time, and be patient with me if I mess up. I could not possibly put all the stories together in the 10 years of Browerville in the 50s, or tomorrow, if you'd please come at 10:30, Browerville in the 60s. So my goal is to just pique some interest in you, and then you'll start talking and doing some things, and be patient with any typos. But to get you thinking about the 50s, most of us were in school in the 50s. There you see some things that we grew up with in all of our schools. So at your table, which one sticks out at you, your remembrances? I'll get you started by thinking. You see the Crayola? I had an 8 Crayola thing. My classmate Patty Thompson had those big ones with the sharpener in it, and she lorded over me on that all the time. So that's one of the things that I remember. But talk a little bit about anything that comes out to mind on you from growing up. Talk at your table a little bit.
You have their printer there, the
Mimeograph
copier.
machine.
Earlier than that would have been the hectographs.
That's right. We had that, and then and all of a sudden, when I was in the 6th grade, Sister Brunel was all excited because we got something like that. Yep. Yeah. Perfect. So talk at your table just a little bit. What sticks out in your mind?
Baltimore County.
I was in that school in Well, we still read I'm with him.
That's an eraser.
Yeah.
Okay. Just had some questions about what is this right here? That's an eraser, and I know at my school, if you misbehaved, you got to go out and pound and come back with chalk. Yeah, two together. Yeah. This thing, that's a 3-hole punch. That's the original 3-hole punch. Those of us that went to Catholic grade school remember the Lord Baltimore Catechism. So yeah. So hey, great. So part of the thing that I forgot to mention is I'm going to have you do some discussion. Hi, Dave. I'm going to have you do some discussion. And if I raise my hand and say focus back up here, if you could come back with me, I'd appreciate that. So we get out of here by midnight. So my favorite memory of growing up in Browerville is Mace's Lot, just down the road over here. We had games there all the time because I lived in town. And Tom Mace organized the Rhubarb Nationals from his side of town. I organized from the south side of town the Southsiders, and we played against each other all the time. And I don't know if you remember Makira comb. You know, if I'd go home scraped up, my mom would put that Makira comb on and it would hurt, you know, oh my goodness. And we didn't have expensive sport drinks, we just had a hose that we drank out of. But we precluded, I'm of this belief, if you remember in the 90s, or the movie Sandlot came out, and I just laughed at that because Mace's Lot was way more important than Sandlot. We'd improvise and we'd go to Johnny Eaton's Hoop on the Garage, or Walt Blankish, seventh brother. We played wiffle ball on the driveway, and Mr. Blankish would come out and give us hints on how to hit that wiffle ball better. And I really remember leaving a little window open at the high school, so on Sundays we could open up that window, go in and play basketball. Being young and in grade school, I just loved Tom Connor and Jim Arnold, and they were my heroes. So my best guess is at some point in life, you went to my great uncle's standard station, and remember him having this change thing, thanks to Ron and Jane Brown. This isn't it, but they found it for me to have. But for me, having that penny candy or whatever, or that was just, if I had an allowance, that's where I would go. And that's the original pop machine that he had in there. I think it was the first pop machine in Browerville, but I can't say that for sure. And Matt would wait for that ding on the thing and come out and fill up your car for $1. Yeah, and he would also check the air in the tires, check the oil, wash the windshield. Those were the days, huh? So if we're gonna do 50s, here's some slang. These are really big words at that point in time. If you remember, now, don't have a cow. I think my mom used that on me a lot. You're cruising for a bruising. All those kind of things they were really cool if you remembered those slang words as you were growing up in the 50s. So, some fads. Look over those fads. Some of you are a little bit younger. You didn't grow up in the 50s, but these are some fads that we had. You remember those cat-eye glasses that people had? Take a look at that and talk at your table. Did you ever get hooked up into doing the twist with Chubby Checker? Any of you men have that DA haircut with the duck's whatever you call that? Duck tail? Yeah, well, there's another word that we used. Hula hoops. Talk at your table a little bit about those fads. Did you get involved in any of those fads growing up?
I always wanted a easy crack at hats. Never got it. Sheepskin cap.
Thank you. Anybody want to volunteer a fad that you talked about? Anybody want to share? Yes.
The drive-in movie theaters. I grew up in southwestern Minnesota, and our family of 6, 4 kids and 2 adults, we would pop a big sack of popcorn, and then we'd go to the drive-in theater. And when one moved to Slayton, then Dad says, "No, we're not driving to Worthington. We're going to Slayton." Slayton didn't have the good movies like we like.
Drive-in
Now, I think
theater.
Mount Perry is the only one that has a drive-in theater.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to show you that in a little bit. Yeah.
Did you have anybody in the trunk?
You beat me to it, yeah. Who wants to own up to being in the trunk, huh? Yes.
We had a Mercury, well, this would have been 60s, but the rear windows went down.
Yeah.
So we could sit on the trunk and have our arms on the car top looking. The back window on the Mercury slid
Yeah, I
down.
remember that. Yeah, great memory. Yeah.
I
So,
love that car.
here's some memories that I have growing up. The candy cigarettes, my mom and dad smoked a lot, so I'd go to get that candy cigarette and have that. Yeah, bubblegum cigars. My grandfather smoked cigars, the bubblegum cigars. I remember getting a BB gun and yeah, misbehaving with that. Baseball cards were the big thing. I don't know if the gum was any gum, but it was 1 cent for a card. Playing wiffle ball and taking an old baseball card and putting it on my bike with a clothespin and thinking I was really cool with the noise I was making. So yeah. So during the winter growing up in Browerville, there were some favorite things too. I loved going to the skating rink and playing crack the whip. We slid down Moscow's Hill a lot. The Homer boys were the king of the hill there. They slewed you a lot. I don't know if you use that word, but they grabbed it and they turn over your sled as you were going down. They were having snow forts. And I put that radiator there because I have this memory of coming in from recess and our wet clothes on that radiator and that smell. I mean, I still have that. That's a worse smell to me than going into the boys' locker room. You know, that smell. So yeah. So just to get us into the 50s, just some things to remember as we get into this talk. In the 40s, we ended the war. We had the Iron Curtain. The Cold War began. The servicemen were coming home with a GI Bill. We had all that going on nationally. But my best guess is if your family was anything like my family, didn't pay a lot of attention. Browerville was what we lived for at that point in time. So here's a pre-1950 Don Lem. I just love this. I don't know if you're an athletic fan, but there's a pose now that athletes give for the Eisman Trophy, and I think Don Lem set it up in the 40s by having that pose. And this is a great saying about in 1946 from Paderewski Hall. They wanted some entertainment, so they got a movie called Blondie Takes a Vacation, and there was going to be a community sing-along after that. and the last line, Browerville has long felt the need for some form of some wholesome entertainment, and has hoped that this new project will equal the demand. So going to Paderewski Hall for a movie was a big thing in the 40s. So now I'm going to get you thinking about the 50s a little bit. I got some questions there for you. Pick one of those and share it at your table. What was your favorite car in the 50s? Do you remember going to a special dance? What was your favorite song to listen to? Did you swoon over Elvis? Was there a TV program, a kids TV program that you liked? And what was a favorite teacher that you might have had, or a favorite event in Browerville? So talk at your table a little bit, please.
Favorite TV shows in your family?
Yeah, and I didn't go to Browerville High School. The rest of it.
All right, if you could focus up here. Anybody want to share a thought that you had? Yes?
I thought you talked about the drive-in movie in the trunk.
Yeah?
That was the place to be because that's where you had your illegal beer.
Oh. Anybody else want to share at all? Let's move on. So, life in the 50s. You remember Leave It to Beaver. It was a time of peace and prosperity after the war and those types of things. There was so much more. There was so much going on to the 50s. So let's look at Browerville right now and think about Browerville in the 50s. I got a quiz for you. Can you name some of those? Talk at your table. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. I just remember when we were
Thank you. If you could focus up here, we're going to help you a little bit, but by answering this quiz. This is the block that we're in right now. This was a picture that was taken a month ago of Browerville, this block. Who can name where Luna's Country Store, what store was there? Brenny's. What was the next store? Post office. The post office in the 50s. What was the next store? Moni's. And then there was a lot that was there, and what was part of that lot? Do you remember that? Lumberyard. And what was the name of the gas station where we're at right now? Reamer's. We got it. You all get A's. Yeah. Fantastic.
Country Food started out as Hart Store.
Exactly. We're going to get there. You're an overachiever, Al. So I've put together, with the help of some people, I've put together, this was Browerville in the 50s. Look at all those things that we had in Browerville. There was no need to leave here. We didn't go to places for big box things, but just look at all the things that we had.
Was that bowling alley at the,
No.
in the school?
Basement of Paderewski, yeah. My first job being a pin setter, yes.
2 lanes,
What?
2 lanes,
3 lanes.
3 lanes.
2 for league bowling and 1 for practice bowling, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this, when you look at this, you think we grew up in a town that was really bustling. And that makes me proud to think of that, what we had. We didn't have to go anyplace because of this. Yeah, so this is just me, it might not be you, but this is why Browerville has always been in my heart, and I'm getting emotional about it, sorry. My belief that Browerville was such a great place because of a triangle that we had in Browerville. That in a lot of places I've been, there wasn't this good triangle, and maybe you don't remember that, but for me, there were 3 parts to the triangle. There was your home and your family that you spent a lot of time with. There was the school that you spent a lot of time with, and there was the church that you spent a lot of time with. And when you have those 3 parts of that triangle, and we're in the middle, you know, it's hard to go wrong. I mean, we made lots of mistakes, but we had helpers, and the helpers were parts of those triangles. So when I talk a lot about my growing up and people go, whoa, tell me about it, I use this as an example because it's something we can be proud of. I don't think a day goes by that I don't think of some value that I had from Browerville. And I had the fortune of being in education my whole life and helping people, and they got tired of listening to about Browerville, and I go, you're never gonna be there. So, let's get in. You remember in the 1950s, we had 3 car dealerships, and at that time, at the beginning of 1950, they would bring the cars in and they'd have tarps over them, and then all of a sudden on a day, they'd have you in for donuts and coffee, and they bring the tarps off and you get to see the new cars. So I put together, those are the Fords of the 50s, no, excuse me, the Chevrolets of the 50s. They started out really nice, and then they got those big fins. Did any of your family have any of those cars? All right, yeah. So the Corvair came in, you know, the engine in the back, and the Beetle was good, but the Nash was a popular in the 50s also, yeah. So here's the Fords. Again, started out pretty quiet and got the fins at the end. And here are the DeSoto Plymouth Chrysler type cars. Again, started out pretty normal and led to the fins. So yeah, walk you down a little memory lane of maybe some of your family cars. So the Korean War started in the 50s, and we had several people that were drafted that spent time in the Korean War, and we also had a gentleman that was killed in the Korean War. 1950, the gymnasium and the stage was done, and it was the first time it was used. And these 2 articles from the Blade, by the way, I went through every Blade from 1950 to 1970 to get all this information and to help with it. But the senior class had the first big event in the auditorium. They had the play Just Ducky, and they were excited about the well-lit place and all, and people were excited about it. But this is the part that really got me excited. They had a faculty-type town basketball game, and if you read this, people like, and they had a nickname for everybody: Slide Blankish, Hook John, Pivot Eaton, Swish Petrie, Free Throw Shank, Rebound Woodars, Ice Center Ice Zins, Screen Eldred, and Defense Drung. I missed Mr. Dressen on here someplace. But anyway, the coaches were Mrs. A.S. Brains Blankish and Mrs. Ray Strategy Woodars. Picture them all playing that game. That just got me excited. So,
You got dressed in there.
yeah, I know, but I didn't say it. I'm sorry. Yeah. So there were 3 major events in Browerville in the spring that were I remember distinctly. Number 1 was high school graduation. Number 2 was always celebrating Veterans Day. And number 3, about every other year we had Dairy Days here. And that was a huge event in Browerville in the 50s. Talking a little bit earlier, dance halls were really important in Browerville. And if you look at this, you could dance on Friday night someplace, you could dance on Saturday night someplace, you could go to church on Sunday, and there was also dance on Sunday night. You could dance and drink and dance and drink and go to church and then go back and dance.
That's life.
Yeah. There's the Browerville football team in 1950. They played with leather helmets yet at that point in time. The class of 1951, when they graduated, actually 3 of their class members couldn't be with them because they were already in the Korean War. And there's a picture of that new edition that I talked about that was in the Blade. And here's a picture of recent grad Kent John in Korea at that time. And I chose that because it represents the number of Browerville people that were part of that Korean War. We had our first homecoming in Browerville in 1951. Mr. Dressen and those of us that knew Mr. Dressen, he had a way of selling things, and he sold the school board on the fact that if the players in Edina, Minnesota could have regular helmets to keep their brains good, Browerville kids should have regular helmets, not leather helmets, and the school board gave in, and it was the first year that we had regular helmets versus leather helmets. In our family, a big time in late November, early December was when the Sears and Roebuck catalog came, and we got to look through it and decide what we wanted for Christmas. Many of you are nodding your head that probably was something that you went through. And I could not wait as a young kid for Toyland at Eaton and Hyde to open up. They had the ping pong tables that they separated, and they had all these wonderful toys that you'd go to. I remember getting the Browerville Blade and looking at the people who had the ads in there and see who worked where. And actually, early on in the 50s, there was always a variety show at the high school featuring a lot of acts, and then a carnival afterwards that Mr. Dressen organized for people. Anybody know why this was an important number for the Octor family? That was our telephone number. Think back, what was your telephone number in the 50s? And do you remember picking up the thing and Miss Hyde would say, number please, and you'd give your, Roger Fisher was 8, John Eaton was 7, the Dressens were 1, 2, 3, Walt and Seb were 133R3 because they were on a party line. Yeah, so do you remember your number at all? Who?
Short, long, short.
Short,
Yes.
long, short. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Our children don't have no idea. Yeah. So as we get into this, Browerville had a way of always having fun together. Lots of card parties. Big card party. They gave $5 silver as a door prize. That time. No movie theater here, so we would have to go to Eagle Bend or Clarissa or Long Prairie to a movie. Sad day, Stanley Spihala's son was shot accidentally in a hunting accident in 1952. I put this one up here because Roy Thompson had the grocery store, and they must have sold enough, and there's on your right-hand side, there's Roy and his wife and Patty Thompson. They got to go to Hawaii. That was a really big thing at that point in time. The Korean War was still going on. There's an ad from the paper wondering how many more people are going to have to be that. Tomorrow we're going to get in a little more about Memorial Day and what goes on during that time. But I love these. Brenny, you can get your wife or your mother shoes for $2.98. I'm sure if you were out in the rain twice, they weren't shoes anymore. The drugstore had all kinds of things for Mother's Day at that point in time. How many of you remember going by the water tower on Saturday nights and bringing a blanket and watching movies? Yeah, Ma and Pa Kettle. Yeah, they were very, very, that was a big night at that point in time. Here are the top movies of the 50s. We don't remember a lot of them, but you notice they're all pretty good movies. Yeah. I don't think any of them ever made it to Clarissa, but they were good movies. There's Mr. Dressen's first year as second year as a head coach. He was able to talk the school board into matching jerseys, matching helmets, and game pants, and they were the first school in the conference to have those kind of uniforms. And if those of us that happened to play athletics for Mr. Dressen, he was always way ahead of people, and you felt so good because of the way you were treated as an athlete. And in 1952 was the first homecoming that Browerville had. And there's a picture of Mr. Dressen at homecoming, and our first homecoming queen there. As we go through this, some of these pictures aren't going to be really good. I got the stuff on a microfilm from the Minnesota Historical Society, and they didn't copy well a lot of the stuff, so you have to go with that. I'm sorry about that. This is, the commercial club sponsored the 10 Little Indians playing their accordions coming to Browerville as entertainment. Now, I don't think you'd get away with that today, but that was a big entertainment in Browerville. The election in 1952, Eisenhower versus Stevenson. Eisenhower did not want to run for president, but he was talked into it because of his reputation as for what he did during World War II. He won as a landslide over Stevenson. As we look on, we're getting back into that Christmas time in '52. Santa Claus was coming to town. The Red All Agency had free coffee and cookies. Deer season, I never went deer hunting, but for those of you that was like a holy day for you, the national holiday. That's what I want. But what I want to get to is, I grew up with the Cavisto family, and Greg Cavisto was my age, and he and his mother were up north and in a car accident, and she was killed. And my 5-year-old good friend Greg was in the hospital because of that. Yeah, that was really traumatic. I really remember that from the Cavisto family. Yeah. This was our form of Facebook in the 50s. You couldn't wait for the blade to come out to read the news. So-and-so went to so-and-so's place, and so-and-so motored to such and such a place, or whatever. I had forgotten bowling, as somebody mentioned about Paderewski Hall. The bowling scores were always on the front page of the blade. That was a big time at that point in time. But where I got this, what I wanted to show you here is the VFW auxiliary was organized for the first year, and 6 more men from Browerville left to go to the Korean War. And Lem's grocery store opened up on the corner at this point in time. Am I jogging your memory a little bit as you're walking back through Browerville days, Browerville time? Yeah. So Paderewski Hall, Paderewski's Quality Inn, Patswald's Quality Inn. Anybody remember where that was located?
Yes, it was on the corner across from Gaia's store.
The corner, right on the corner, yeah, where the City Hall is right now. That was yeah. Some good athletes were going through at that point in time. There's Don Lem. He got home from the Korean War standing in front of his mom and dad's store. Fishing season, another time if you lived on Main Street like we did, boats and cars coming by all the way going, and on Sunday going back. My mom, and that was an outing for our family, sitting on the front porch watching the cars go by. Yeah, that was a good thing. So, how many of you remember going to watching American Bandstand after school? Yeah, I could not wait to get home. I had such a crush on one of the girls. Yeah, that was a big thing. So let's look a little bit at the music. And remember the jukebox? 5 plays for a quarter. Yeah. Talk at your table. Any of you make use of the 5 plays? What? Remember any of the songs that you push the button on, or are you sort of blind? Anybody remember any of those? That's pretty quiet. I didn't remember, but here are our rock and roll musicians that were really popular in the 50s. Yeah, they're the best songs of the 50s. Elvis came in 19 56, and all of a sudden he took over for a while? Any of you swoon over Elvis? Yeah. So, town team baseball was huge in the 50s and the 60s. I remember my father driving our car up after church early on Sunday and parking on the left field side so he could sit in the car and honk the horn when somebody got a base hit. It was really big, and there were some great town team players. Bob Jankowski was the pitcher. Fay Mace was the catcher. Jack Dresden was one of the best hitters at that time. But that was the Sunday afternoon thing that you did for our family, was go to town team baseball games. That was huge for us. And Tom Steinmetz and I became bat boys in the late 50s, and I learned the facts of life riding in the back of a car going to games with listening to the older guys talk about things. Yeah. The atomic testing, do you remember the worry about the bomb going to hit here? We had, I remember growing up sitting underneath our desk thinking that's going to save us during an atomic bomb. And there was some leaflets that went through town. This is from the Browerville Blade, suspicious about there's going to be a bomb that's going to be threatening us. Fallout shelters. I remember going down to our fruit cellar and putting food in there in case we had to be in there as a fall. And I couldn't believe 1 out of 28 families had a fallout shelter. Anybody of you have a regular fallout? Remember that at all? Yeah. So, getting back to school, we talked about being centered in Browerville, but sometimes you went to Hart's department store in Long Prairie. You remember going to Long Prairie, and if you'd buy something, they'd put the money in the little thing, and they'd hit the thing, and it'd go up to the second floor, and then they'd come back down. Yeah. But some of you would go to Brenny's for your clothing. Some of you would order online or Penny's, but some of you were the second or third child, and you lived on hand-me-downs. You never got anything new. Never got nothing new. That's right. Yeah. So in the fall of '53, we went from 6-man to 8-man football. You're thinking 6-man to 8-man? Yeah, that's what they had. Shirley Barron was our homecoming queen. They had a really good team that year. We actually had one of our first all-state football players, and I love this chicken dinner at St. Peter's, served $1 for adults, 50 cents for kids. Yeah. So, voting, Concalusa was voted mayor. Archie Mace was injured in a car accident, and the skating rink was open at that time. It was by the old water tower, and I don't know if any of you ever went there, but Mr. Winkler would fire up the stove, and you'd get all wet, and you'd come in there, and you'd dry off. That was a huge thing at that point in time. In the 50s, we lived with the Red Scare, worried about communism all over. Have to be aware of that. Our hospital at that time was voted on. Here's an article talking about the vote on it, bingo parties, and look at some of the prices that we had at the grocery store. Delano's bought the local hardware store where BK, whatever it is now,
DK Bloom.
BK Bloom is located there. That was that store. And look at the hospital bond was passed by a margin of 25-1, and plans were made for a 40-bed hospital. The Knights of Columbus always put on a spring play, and community members were part of that spring play. And how many of you remember going to the high school and getting your TB shot? Everybody had to go up there, and you stood in line, and you got your tuberculosis shot at that point in time. In 1954, Brown versus Board of Education was passed, and my best guess is not a single person in Browerville could understand what was going on in the South with the segregation of schools, because we didn't live that kind of life. That was a seminal court case for the United States at that time. There's a picture of what the hospital was gonna be looking at, and is that your brother, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, Dave Benning's brother, as one of the top students. Mr. Faith was hired the summer of '54 as a music instructor. I remember it because he played the violin all the time, and I'd never heard a person playing the violin. That was something different in Browerville, rather than a tuba or a trombone or whatever, yeah. And in 1954, the creamery got a new machine to have homogenized milk in glasses. Remember the little milk bottles and those kinds of things that you had? My favorite ad in the Browerville Blade, as I was looking at it, all the beer you can drink for $1 per person at Bunny's place. Can you imagine the slobbering that went on at that point? Yeah. Janice Money was the homecoming queen, the football team. Yeah, so we'll get back into Christmas again. My grandfather was really big on the nuts. We had to get those and buy those, remember, at Christmas time, and crack those nuts. He was really good at that. So we're in that time of Christmas presents in the middle 50s. Tiny Tears, the first doll that wet. You gave water and it wet, so you had to put a diaper on it. Pickup sticks. Any of you ever played pickup sticks? Yeah, huge. Roger Fisher would sit and look for minutes, and he'd get the minuscule. I mean, he was so good at that. Yeah. Tinker Toys. The worst present I ever received was the major present I got one year was paint by numbers of the Last Supper, and I was no good at that. It never got painted. Yeah, so the winter of '55. I love this picture of the hospital that was going to be built, and they had their fundraiser at a dance, and after the whole thing, their net profit was $423 for the whole big fundraiser. You know, we were looking at money now versus money then. You know, that was probably a big fundraiser for them. I don't know if you remember, in the middle '50s, the commercial club would bring in professional wrestling one night a year, and my grandfather lived and died for professional wrestling. He smoked a cigar, and I would sit at his house and we watch it on TV. And when they brought professional wrestling, my grandfather was the first person in line to get two tickets, one for him, one for me, ringside, because I'm still convinced that he thought it was real. So you see the picture on the left-hand side. One year, Kinji Shibuya, who was from Japan, was a really good wrestler. My grandfather remembered World War II and the Japanese, and he was not happy that they were bringing somebody from Japan to wrestle in Browerville. So he got in line and bought one ticket for me. He boycotted professional wrestling. He walked the streets smoking his cigar, mad that night, because and never even asked me what went on that night. Yeah. So some nice pictures again of what was going on at school in the Blade. Here we have the top students. FFA is being recognized. Dance Cafe is sold. Now, you're going to start seeing some things that, as I was doing this research, that I hadn't thought about. Lots of stores downtown were robbed at night, and I started thinking about that, and I started thinking, why would that happen? Well, I mean, we're so used to security and all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, Eaton and Hydes would lock the door, probably with a skeleton key or whatever they had at that time, and it was easy to break into them. So you're going to see this going on a lot, and there was nobody on duty in town unless the sheriff's deputy happened to drive through. So that was really the biggest surprise that I had as I was going through this from my memory. I put this picture in because it's 1955, and you see those baseball uniforms. Some of you that played baseball in the 60s, and we had that same itchy wool uniform to wear, and you can't believe how bad they were, how heavy they were to wear. George's Drive-In opens up at a grand opening. Remember where that first drive-in was located in Browerville? right across the street from my great uncle's gas station. That's right, yeah. The Quality Inn reopens. Mrs. Soul, who was a war bride, came home and lived here, and she became a citizen. That was really big at that point in time. Yeah, so teachers that were hired, Mr. Stolall, you probably remember him, living here for a long time. They had pictures of the 3 schools in the paper. Do you remember going to the high school when polio became big and taking that pink cube so you wouldn't get polio? Yeah. Again, another good football team. And this is an interesting thing. Browerville was the first school in the area for the players to wear face masks. Typically you didn't have it. And they went to Deer Creek and the coach wasn't going to play because Browerville players had face masks. And the referee said, you're going to play. So that was huge at that time. Again, homecoming and first place junior class float. Another place is robbed again. The dedication of the hospital, great. It was a huge attendance at that. There's the emergency room, the first hospital. The first baby that was born was Tim Holscher. And stores were going to be closing on Friday for Good Friday. And they started putting in the paper on the front page who was in the hospital, and who got out of the hospital. Yeah, you got to see that. Yeah, and that was really gossip stuff. You know, why are they in there? Yeah, honor students, the prom, the drugstore. Mr. Jankowski sold the drugstore to Vince Leeson. Ed's Big Barn opened up in 1956. So I could be wrong on this, but around us we had Horseshoe Lake, Knotty Pine, the New Clarissa Ballroom, Whoopie Inn, Ed's Big Barn. Did I miss any there?
Sheepshed.
Sheepshed. Thank you. I could not
Down
remember.
by Golden Shores.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
never there, but I.
Yeah, oh, yeah, your nose is getting longer too. So, talk at your table. Any one of those your favorite one to go to at all? Talk at your table a little bit. Thanks for adding that. I forgot that.
I remember when I was a kid, I lived right next to Ed's Big Barn, and I was just a little kid, but I can remember people coming up to the house, knocking on the door, and my dad pulled them out of the chips at night. Middle of the night, somebody knocked on the door. I had to try to fire up the tractor, it'd be winter time.
Thank you. If you can focus up here. I did overhear some big stories about what happened and we're going to do some interviews of you people. Yeah. Neat. There's that picture of the long drive-in when it opened up in the summer of 1956, and that's a picture that was in the Minneapolis paper a year ago as one of the long-standing drive-ins. The grand opening of Brick's Drive-In, and I put that there because I have no idea. Does anybody remember Brick's Drive-In, where it was? No, okay.
Wasn't there a drive-in? Oh,
That was
yeah.
Marlowe's Drive-In. That was on the way to, what was that town next to us?
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, Browerville football. This really got me thinking about why Browerville was so good for us growing. In the fall of '56, they had a fall festival, and if you could take time to read through this, everybody that I looked up to that was somebody in Browerville that had something to do with the school or had something to do with the commercial club, they were all involved in this. And that, bless you. And that to me, that said a lot how golden it was to grow up in Browerville during the '50s. They were totally involved with this.
I
Yes.
do notice one thing, none of the women have first name.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
all Mrs. this,
Yeah,
Mrs.
oh yeah,
that.
that's, yeah, good catch, yep,
Yeah, they
yeah.
didn't have names.
yeah. There's, Nixon, who was running for president, eventually, who was the vice president, spoke at, in Alexandria. He was the vice president for, Eisenhower, and Eisenhower was running again, and there, but the Browerville Blade started putting pictures of small fry on parade, and Dan is here, and there's his picture. Yeah.
Haven't changed a bit.
Yeah, thanks for paying me to put that up there, Dan. Yeah, so, homecoming royalty, and Dan's sister, they always had a young couple, young elementary people, bring in the crowns and that kind of a thing. So again, Nixon won by a landslide, Eisenhower won by a landslide. The Hearth Brothers farm burned down in December, and the Cavistos Christmas tree lot, if you remember going to buy your Christmas tree there. The school board start looking at that, do we need to add on? Because they wanted to offer better shop classes and home ec class and typing class. How many of you remember your parents collecting green stamps? Oh, my goodness, yes. And it was a big night when my family would bring out the green stamps and count them up and then decide what new lamp they're gonna get or what new whatever. And my mom and dad smoked unbelievably too much, and they smoked Raleighs so they could collect the Raleigh coupons. Yeah, yeah. So,
We still have 4 TV trays that we got with the green stamps back in '65.
yeah. Neat story, thank
Was
you.
that Gamble's? Was it, who gave the green stamps?
That was Hart's.
Hearts did?
Yeah, yeah, Red Owl, yep. Yeah, so, big time announcement for those of us that love TV, because we typically had to watch snow because we couldn't get the TV stations from the cities. Alexandria says they're gonna have a TV station, huge. And again, all of a sudden, all of the people in Browerville, all the stores decided they're gonna be open on Friday nights. And that was a big night, and Roger Fisher and I would go to Shanks and we'd buy a nickel worth of peanuts and in a shell and walk up and down the streets, hoping that some of the girls who lived out in the country, their dad would bring them in and we could look at them. Yeah, and I found this, remember the cash register? That's the kind of cat, you hit the buttons and you ching-ching, that type of, that. We forget about those kinds of things. How many of you watched the Lennon, Lawrence Welk and the Lennon sisters? Yeah, I had a big crush on one of them, yeah. Yeah, we the youngest one. Yeah. We would hurry home because there was church on Saturday night at St. Peter's Church, and you'd hurry home to be able to watch that. So this is an interesting statistic. The 50s, in 1946, there were only 7,000 TV sets in the that were sold in the United States. By 1950, 5 million TVs were sold. So boom, it's the box that took over the States. Yeah, as you look at that. So I mentioned the Alexandria TV station. My grandfather, smoking a cigar one Sunday after we ate, he said to my dad, he said, Leo, you and Chuck and I are going for a ride. I want to go see the new TV station in Alexandria. So I sit in the back, windows up, my dad smoking cigarettes, my grandpa smoking a cigar, I'm coughing in the back. We get all the way to Alexandria, and the only thing that we look at is the tower. That's what he wanted to see. And he saw it, and he said, okay, let's go home. But KCMT was a lifesaver because we went from seeing those, that snow to being able at least one station, and it was NBC and ABC. So I would get up early and watch test patterns, and then the TV would come on, because it didn't come on until 7 o'clock in the morning. So here's some memory lane for you. TV ads in the 50s were mostly cartoon characters and Ham's Bear, the Land of Sky Blue Waters. Saturday morning TV. There's some of the great programs that were on Saturday morning. Each one a half hour. Start looking at them and seeing what one was your favorite. I loved Axel in his treehouse because of Tallulah, the cat, and also because of the Little Rascals and the Little R Gang. Yeah. There's some more the kids programs that were on. Family shows were big. The dad always wore a suit and tie. They came home and the mother in a dress, Mrs. whatever it was, had the meal made. She always had a dress on. Yeah. Except in these two, these were sort of off the wire type TV programs in the 50s that were really great. Westerns were huge in the 50s. There's my sister in the middle, cowgirl Barb. She would wear the cowgirl outfit so she could watch the Westerns with us. Crime programs were big in the 50s. Quiz shows, half-hour quiz shows. You'd watch $64,000 question. They put them in the secret booth to answer the questions. Actually, if we had time, when I teach a class on the 50s, I go into how they were cheating the whole time in $64,000 question. Yeah. The Ed Sullivan Show, right? And all the acts that he had on. And there's a picture on the left of Elvis was on, and because of his gyrations, they only showed him from the waist up. Yeah. I remember the guy spinning all the plates. Yeah. And Toto Gibo and Senior Wences, those are big time Ed Sullivan people. The news, we got the news at 6 o'clock at night for 15 minutes nationally. So in the fall the spring of 57, they put up for a vote that new part onto the high school. The FFA team wins a time for the state, but I have that up there because in 1957, Dr. Lenars retired and Dr. Brown came to town. Huge change, okay? The new building passed by 220 to 59. We're getting into that time where things are going to start ramping up and you're going to see people going into the military again. There are the honor students of 57, and there's the class of 57 and the Dairy Princesses of 57. How many of you went to Lake Charlotte on swimming? Yeah, we went on Tuesdays and Thursdays for Browerville. The buses would get in line, 3 buses, 2 of the Ziggin buses and 1 of Gus Drung. You had swimming classes, you went there and bought a popsicle, and on the way back, if you were in certain buses, you sang 99 beers on the wall, all the way down as loud as you could. Yeah, that was really big. And the Todd County Fair, which is going on right now, but the Todd County Fair was for me, it was huge. Talk about, did you go to the county fair, and was there a favorite ride that you used to go on at all? Talk about that at your table. Did you go to the county fair? Thank you. Walt Blankish and I went there, and Walt gave me a lesson on when you're going to go into the tilter, you sit on this side, because when it turns, then the girl that you're asking is going to have to slide into you. And then you put your arm, I mean, he walked through what I had to do for that. Yeah.
Did you remember?
No, I was too, actually, I walked up and down and never asked anybody to go on. I was too embarrassed. 57, remember I mentioned the idea of Brown versus Board of Education, which you probably didn't think much of. In 57, Orville Fava stood in front of the school and didn't allow African Americans into the Little Rock school. 57 also, do you remember Sputnik went up, the beep, 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 the little basketball, and all of a sudden the United States was way behind in the space race. We were losers for the first time in so many things, yeah. So, in 1957, we had a homecoming queen by the name of Dolores Dudek. There she is. Yeah. And she's also in charge of the Todd County History Museum, and she's helping us in a lot of things, so thank you for being here, appreciate that.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Yeah, and that new addition was on, the new shop and the new home ec rooms. Some of you remember being in those in Browerville, thinking they were really big, and they were at that time. Again, the Christmas programs, at that time, it was probably not right to be having the nativity scene and those kinds of things on separation of church and state. But if you remember, the nativity scene in Browerville was very, very important. Norelco Speed Shaver for 17 at the Cozy Barber Shop. And again in the South during this time, the Jim Crow was going on. I knew nothing about this, that it was going on at that time. The local news, St. Joseph's Holy Communion, the class of 58, another store robbing going on. And then we hit this big celebration in 1958 of the state of Minnesota being 100 years old. They had this big parade. It was the largest ever to see a parade in Long Prairie. Browerville had 2 units in the parade. And then we had there was a program for 3 nights at the county fairgrounds, and each town in the county put on a program, and there's what Browerville did, and there's Pat Thompson, who was one of the students. She told me that her mother made that dress for her to look like it was at time, yeah. So Mr. Free was hired in 1958, so a long-time person here. They had an open house of the new part of the school, and there was the typing room. That was really big at that time. Postal rates went up in 1958 to spend 4 cents to send a letter. Yeah, outrageous, yeah. Yeah, I remember 1958 and 59, really strong. Maybe Davey, you remember this too. I went to St. Peter's grade school, and at St. Peter's you had the little room, the middle room, and the big room, and I went up to the big room, and Sister Burnell was our teacher. And we're still at this Red Scare, and we'd come in every morning and we'd have board work to do for the Lord Baltimore Catechism, and she'd go talk to Mrs. Brown, the cook, and she'd come back, and I validate this with people that were there. A couple of things, she'd come in and she'd say, students, we won't be going out for class today because I just heard an airplane flying over and it might be the communists. And then another day she came in and she said, students, we won't be going out for recess today because I was talking to cook Mrs. Brown, and she found a piece of candy on the playground on the way in today, and we think the communists put it there. We were being fed that day.
Yeah, she had us so afraid, and I went home. I had my brother lay under the covers, and I said, you gotta act like you're dead now, you cannot move. And I would tickle his feet, and I wouldn't let him make them sound. You gotta play dead, and by golly, it worked.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Dave, for sharing that, because I can remember going home from school, and we lived across from St. Peter's Church, going out across the railroad tracks into a field and building a fort out there where I could take my sisters where we could be safe when the communists came to town. We were being fed that all the time, yeah.
Did you take your Red Ryder with you too?
Yeah, I did, that's right, yeah, I got it, yep. So, there's our homecoming queen, and Danny you weren't here at the beginning, I was talking about Mace's Lot, but we rivaled homecoming for 1 year with our own homecoming king and queen, and Danny Mace played a horn in our parade, and then we had a football game, and the Southsiders beat the Rhubarb Nationals. I just wanted to let you know that.
You had to bring that up.
Yep, exactly. We're getting into the fall of '58, and you notice we got new uniforms. Big homecoming. The Browerville Drug Store moved to a new headquarters. They moved out of where they were into what we remember it, pheasant season. The the auxiliary started offering junior bowling league for elementary kids, which is really fun. The girls would have these little bowling balls, and they'd go back, and it was too heavy and fall out and fall on behind them. And KEYL came in 1958. How many of you had a transistor radio? Yeah, I remember getting my first transistor radio and going upstairs and laying in bed and listening to KEYL and the songs that were being played. Square Dance Club, John Sabota died in an auto accident, and another burglary in town. Again, Christmas was a big thing, and the commercial club celebrates all the things. If you remember, they used to have a contest for the best Christmas decorations, and Bob Bentz won, and he won $5 for having the best Christmas decorations. The old a new water tank was voted on to be there. Richard Keto was injured in a car accident. 1959, February of 1959, Buddy Holly and the Crickets, they played with a bunch of others in Clear Lake, Iowa. They were the top rock and roll group, and they left that night in a plane, and the plane went down about a half a mile from the airport, and they were all killed in that. It was the day that the music died. Yeah, so in the spring of 1959, the school board announced that they'd have a junior high in Browerville. The choir got an A, and there were 15 hams given away in March for Easter at that point in time. There's the class of '59. And Fireman's had an annual dance, which is really a big thing. Typically, the Blue Derbies played at it. Gus Drung, the Drung family, were very, very, very musically inclined. There's our top songs in 1959. See if you remember any of those. We celebrated our Diamond Jubilee in Browerville with a big celebration over the 4th of July. And somebody mentioned, Jane, you mentioned that there's the Marlowe's barbecue drive-in and their specials. Hot roast pork sandwich, french fries, and a beverage for 50 cents. Yeah, so new teachers in '59, Chuck Carger was one of them, Angie Hudavernick, Will Meyerhofer, who took over the FFA, Ron Jab. Paderewski Hall, get the bowling leagues going in the fall. There's a football team, one of our heroes, Ron Brown, pictured there. And there's Sev Blankish as one of the captains. Sandra Connolly was the queen in '59. St. Peter's grade school was built, and those of us that went to the hill, all of a sudden, we went to the building right behind the church. For mayor, Joseph Glotke became the longtime mayor, and the Pine Cafe is now open on Sundays, serving turkey. That was the '50s in Browerville. So talk at your table a little bit before we end this. What was brought up that you'd completely forgot about? That, oh yeah, that was a good thing. Talk at your table a little bit about the '50s.
Yeah, right, yeah.
After I was, well, I was in
Town
yeah, I went to country school, but then I didn't go to public school there.
I guess I just know a lot of it.
At that age too.
I went to school in Lake Park, and I just lived there full time, January of 2017. And Dave and I were still back and forth, and
All right, thank you. If, who would like to share something that that you'd forgotten that you remember because of this? Who would like to share?
The hospital was big.
The hospital was big at that time. Yeah, a big thing for us. Yeah.
Well, I remember I went to the Catholic school, St. Peter's Catholic School, and Joe Urban and was it Hansi? Not Hans. What was his other brother?
Joe?
Butch.
Butch.
Eaton. They were like in 8th grade, and we had a nun, and they were on the 3rd floor of the school. We were on the 1st floor, and between the Eaton and Joe Urban, they got the teacher going, the nun going all the time. And then one would run down the stairs, and then the other one would holler. The one that was downstairs would holler at the buddy upstairs to come down. Then the nun would come with a broom and she would chase them. They'd run all the way down the hill. And that went on several times. And then they had the priest come over and talk to these two boys because it was disturbing the class, because we all had to stick our head up the door or the window to see what was going on. But they did that pretty often.
Yeah.
Until the priest came over and talked to them. But I thought that was something. We kind of waited for it because then you didn't have to sit. But then they made us pray, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that was it.
Anybody else want to share?
At St. Peter's too, your meal, the noon meal was 50 cents a week.
Yeah, 50 cents a week. That's right. Yeah.
And we got spaghetti if you wanted.
Yeah. And we also had mashed potatoes with turkey, no, excuse me, hamburger gravy, yeah. And you had to eat it all before you could leave. And I remember having big cuffs on my pants and putting in mashed potatoes. Yeah. Dave Benning, you'll remember this. When we were in the big room, our Sister Burnell, we had recess at 10:15, 15-minute recess, and she'd always have a question for us about some ridiculous thing like who was the Pope in 1842 or something like that. And then you'd have to write the name down, and if you knew it, you got to go out for recess. Well, I can say this because she's not here today, but Diane Halsher always knew the answer. And she was down. She was the only one playing outside. We never got to go out for recess. And because I was taller, I had to sit back by the 8th graders, and I'm a squirrely 6th grader. And Roger Fisher or Walt Blankish or Wayne Lucas or John Eaton would whisper something like Harmon Killebrew or something like that. So I'd write it down thinking I was smart. Yeah, that was good times. So, we talked about that. I thank you for being here. There's my email address if you want to, like the Sheetses, if I missed something that you think is important about, email me so I can add it to this history. So I want to get us to, we're here today, and I'm so thankful that you're here, but there are certain things that are going on that you need to be aware of. Number one, there's that senior citizens lunch. We're open today until 4 o'clock and tomorrow from 10 until 4. If you haven't, Jane and Ron Brown have put together Browerville history there, and that's so important for you to, I hope that you would look at. And if you want to just come and sit and talk, I think it's a great place. Sue has put together all the military things. You would just have unbelievable experience looking through her notebooks and seeing all the people that have been in the military. Thank you, Ron and Jane, and thank you, Sue, for what you're doing. We have a guest book that has, and that make sure you sign in so we know that you're here. We also, if you're interested in telling your story, we've labeled this as Stories Not Lost. We have this passion of not letting stories get lost. I don't know how about you, but in our family, I don't know how many times my sisters and I, in fact, I had dinner with them last night, we said, we wish we would have asked our dad this. You lose that. So our goal is to get that out and tell those stories. So if you're interested in being interviewed at some point in time, I'd love to interview you about growing up in Browerville. And we now have established a YouTube station for the Browerville Legacy Museum, and we hope to put this on it. We've got some interviews on that, and we'll be putting more interviews on it as you go through. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the Browerville Legacy Museum, there's Al Fenner right there, or other people, talk to them about it, because we think it's important for Browerville to have a place to keep this history that we have going in Browerville. There's a silent auction over here if you want to sign up for it. Don't forget tonight's Vets Club chicken dinner tonight, and don't forget the raffle that the Vets Club has going on. That's very, very important for the Vets Club.
Yeah, I brought a poster that kind of shows what's on the tickets if anyone's interested.
Yeah, don't forget.
The Vets Club kitchen has to get upgrade for the insurance to be able to be covered by insurance, and so they got a raffle to get the fire suppression system and air exchange system over the ovens down there, so they gotta do some modifications. So that's what that raffle ticket's for.
Great, thank you very much. We, as members of this Browerville Legacy, also have a raffle planned in the future. You can see the Tom Brady jersey over there that's signed by Tom Brady, and several other prizes that we're gonna have part of it. If you're interested, see Mary when we get approval to have the raffle. She'll take your name and let you know about it. We think it's very, very important for us. Tomorrow, if you got a little bit of itch in you from today's on the 50s, and you were a little bit older to remember the 60s or wiser, I'll be doing something on the 60s tomorrow. And then thanks to Sue and the auxiliary, there's a lunch tomorrow for $8 and here, and then veterans get to eat free. So that's, I think, really neat. And at 1 o'clock, I'm doing my favorite presentation. It's called World War II and the Common Man. And you look at all of the veterans that we've had in Browerville. Sue said 1,400 and some.
Yes, and out of those, there may be 100 or so that aren't from Browerville,
Yeah.
but most of them have some sort of connection to Browerville.
They're common men, and they have done uncommon things. And I've had the fortune to put together my dad's story of being in the Battle of the Bulge. And I visited the battleground and have stories that from letters that he wrote to his sisters and those types of things. And his brother, and also Jack Dress, and I have his information because they were all in the Battle of the Bulge area. So I'd like to share that with you. One of those stories not lost. I think that you'll learn a lot about the common person. Think of yourself at 19, never being out of the state of Minnesota, and all of a sudden being in Belgium in a foxhole fighting in World War II. So I'd like to share that with you. I think it's worth coming at 1 o'clock to see that. We also have a raffle for today. Jane, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, someone will help me here.
Yep.
Stay around, and there's just a raffle prize.
A raffle prize so we'll get you a number.
Save one part of it, save one part. Someone might help me do this.
Any questions that you have while she's doing that at all?
What is that website?
Doesn't matter, I don't think which one you keep, because they both have the same number.
Got it. Okay.
Keep one part of it running for the raffle.
Are you doing the